Come on! All right, welcome. Seahorn Spikes back on the mic here today with Taylor Church. Taylor, my guy, what's been going on over in Utah?
What's up, man? A lot, a lot around that. Life's pretty good. The COVID situation isn't too wild out here.
Yeah, that's
And if
definitely lucky.
if it is, people don't act like it is. So,
Hmm.
and that's I've kind of come to this weird realization that whatever my opinion is on the matter doesn't really matter
Mm-hmm.
because it's not gonna change whatever this virus is doing. Obviously, I can take my own precautions and do my best to be responsible, but as far as being like hyper opinionated, I don't think it makes a huge difference. So I
Yeah,
don't have I don't have a very strong opinion on it really.
yeah. I think there's something to be said about that. I think that like commanding or demanding that people live up to what your expectations are for how you're handling with the virus just doesn't really work. And
Yeah,
I think at the end of the day, like I just tell people like at a bare minimum, follow your state and local guidelines.
right.
I think that that's just something that we could all do. Um, and some states and some localities have much stricter stuff. So like by us, it's very apparent. By us, if you go out into the world, nearly 100% of people have masks on, especially if you're like at a store or around a ton of people. Like I'd say more than 50% of people like at parks that are by themselves are still wearing masks, which like I don't even line up on that. Like if I'm able to maintain 6 feet, I don't wear a mask unless I'm indoors. But um, yeah, I just think that you can have a bunch of opinions on this, but at the end of the day, like you can't expect everyone to do exactly what you're doing. I just kind of
Right.
recommend like let's listen to experts and not decide ourselves whether or not we know what's going on with the virus, because I
Right.
don't think we do.
Yeah.
But it's nice that you've been able to do a ton of RoundNet. What does that look like over in Utah right now?
I mean, I'm sure you've noticed we basically have tournaments every week.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple off weeks, but Sanford does such an amazing job. He basically has our like Utah Tour series, but then between the tour tournaments, he usually has these friendlies,
Mm-hmm.
which are usually ran not ran by the cities, but they're like city events. And so they're
Like in
usually
conjunction with like the park district or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
So they're usually a little bit smaller, a little bit more casual, like smaller prizes. They're just, and it's usually like where me and Stokes look to mash up and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of have fun. I've played in a couple of those with high school kids,
Mm-hmm.
um, and but because we have so many people playing out here, they end up being pretty darn competitive anyway.
Right.
Like, they're kind of designed to be like less competitive. We only have three divisions instead of the usual like five or six, but
Mm-hmm.
then we end up having a ton of people go anyway. So it's pretty fun. And then, we have pretty standard pickup once a week and we're getting like 11 or 12 nets going.
Wow.
So have we just have such good numbers. And like I said, for better or worse, people aren't overly going wild with corona precautions.
Mm-hmm.
And our state laws aren't mandating it right now. And so I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be the minority and be more careful than the law is indicating I should be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so it's a lot around that. It's a lot of fun, and I started doing private coaching sessions.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that, which I think is really cool. I don't think a lot of people have really done that. I know like CS has like run a clinic or two.
Yeah.
I think Anchor did something out in New York every once in a while, but I think it's cool that you're kind of taking that on your shoulders. What made you want to get into that specifically?
Um, Honestly, I've always loved coaching. I coached high school basketball for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, always did a bunch of like, always coached at like basketball camps and stuff. Helped out at like these BYU basketball camps, but I basically just saw the market for it. Like I've
Yeah.
always wanted, just like you, I've always wanted to make money through RoundNet,
Mm-hmm.
and I've I've never been like, and it's probably more geographical, but I've never really cared to like really try to go to like trade shows and expos and get super into that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I love the people, I love the community, and I love coaching. So to me, it was kind of a no brainer. And then I saw, during the Spike House, um, HTR came out and did several clinics,
Yeah.
and they just sold out like that.
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
I'm
especially with the market in Utah. I mean, you guys
right,
have done a really good job of getting a bunch of newer players into this, and you seem to have what I've kind of always wanted to see in a lot of clubs is like this feeder program where like you're not only like developing talent, but you're also inspiring the talent to be taking it a lot more seriously. And
right.
I mean, I think offering that also helps, but it seems like you kind of had that even before you started, which is just so
Yeah,
encouraging to see.
we have such a good group of um, we have a ton of high school kids, we have a ton of kids in college, we have, a handful of married guys, we have, like in any community, we don't have a ton of girls, but we have, a handful that like to play.
Hmm.
And I just, to me, it was like I always at pickup have people picking my brain and asking me for help and wanting me to show them things. And I'm always happy to. I love it, but I really only spend maybe 5-10 minutes with them.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I see the market for this, but I'm not super interested in running a clinic.
Yeah.
What I want to do is help people one on one. And so I had Sanford, I just went to dinner with Sanford and we kind of talked about the market and what we thought would be fair for pricing and what would be realistic. And he was very helpful and on board. And then we decided to throw it out as a prize for a couple of these local tournaments.
That's
Say,
smart.
just do it as a giveaway. Hey, if you win, you get a free coaching session with church.
Hmm.
And so we did a few of those, um, and I've structured it so I just tell people the first one, it's about an hour session. So I usually say the first, it's $25 a session, but if you want to book 4 sessions, then it's $80, so it's cheaper.
Right.
Um, and usually it's been the case that people just start with the first one and then they really like it and decide, okay, now I'll add 4 more.
Right. Well, that's, I mean, I think that's really smart, especially because in my experience with this, and I'm wondering if you have gotten any of this too, like in my experience with this, like it seems like a lot of people want that information for free because they also like have access to it if they're practicing with you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that like part of the thing is like you guys have such big numbers that you guys aren't spending all of your time around one or two nets where you can actually like help that person for an entire practice section. Like you're moving around so much that like you might get a glimpse of something, but if you wanted something a little bit more direct, you might have to actually pay for it. Versus like the way that Origin always works, like we like maybe had practices with like four, maybe five nets. And so there was just a lot of access to what should I have done in this situation, what'd you think about my serves? And we just kind of gave that advice for free. And then if anyone tried to really kind of go for something else, they were like, I'm getting enough of it like for free that I don't think I need to pay for it. Um,
Right.
but I think that's like such a huge thing too, because like paying for something is also a commitment to yourself to actually work on something. Like when you get something for free in life, it's just not the same. You don't take it as seriously. You don't take that advice as seriously. So sometimes money's just a commitment device to like actually work on something and work on it to the best of your ability. Because when you're paying $25 to get better for an hour, you're gonna really focus during that hour versus like
Right.
if you're just practicing like you always practice and someone gives you some tips, like maybe you don't actually implement that or take that in as much or digest it or actually make an improvement to your game. So I think what you're doing is great, but like, did you run into objections to that price point because I'm just trying to imagine doing that in Chicago right now, and
Uh,
I feel like the majority of people would be like, I think I'm good. I don't know that 25 an hour is going to be worth it for me.
right. I haven't. I feel like, because here's the thing: everybody in the community knows that I'm more than willing to help anyone for free,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
But they're just not going to get. I don't have time to sit down and work with someone for an hour, like because I'm working on my own game. Like
Right.
at pickup, I'm there to work on my game, and I'm happy to help anyone along the way. Um, but I don't have time for one-on-one training with as many people as want to get better.
Right.
And so I think right now there's probably plenty of people that are like, that sounds cool. It's probably not worth it. But
But you have
I
enough
think
interest that it's
I have
still
enough
still
interest,
happening.
and it's really just like anything, it's spreading through word of mouth because people have a really good experience and they realize, okay, I went in and like church taught me how to pull and how to really hit it low every time, and now I can actually do it.
Right.
And so because I really focus on the fundamentals because most of these people I'm working with aren't like high advanced low premier players. They're usually more intermediate,
Oh, interesting.
and so they're learning skills that they just have not been able to get by themselves, and
Hmm.
from watching film and watching YouTube videos. And even if you sit down and watch all the like HTR videos and all the pro spikers stuff, it's really hard if you don't have someone saying, yeah, but you're doing this wrong,
Right. No,
you
it's
know
it's so hard when you can't look at yourself. And even with like what I've been doing is, really going over like slow-mo footage of myself. Like, when I'm in my basement, like I'll like record a bunch of reps in slow motion and then go back and try to look at it. But it's not the same as someone like giving you live feedback because I got to do 10 serves and then go back and look at them all and then go, oh, that one was a little high, that one was a little low, and then it all kind of averages out. Like it's better than not reflecting on what you're actually doing mechanically, but it's
right.
it's so different when you get that live feedback. And I think I miss that a lot more than I realized. Just I've always had coaches in sports, and I've always taken well to coaching.
Yeah.
And Roundnet has been the exact opposite. Like there really wasn't anyone to coach you. Like other than the first year that I played competitively, I had Dylan and Drucker and Mike Hammersley back in the day to like look up to because they had been playing longer than me. But at some point, I caught up to them, and then there was no one else to really look forward to in terms of like just objectively that person being so much better than you.
Right. Right.
Um, and so, I think there's so much that we can learn through these things. Like, I think, you know, Preston is just so mechanically sound. I mean, you can see that in all of his motions, but that's also, what he does for his job. And you can tell that he thinks about, you know, where you're delivering power from and where your contact point is and how that results in all these things.
Yeah.
And as far as RoundNet's concerned, like I never did that. I just kind of learned through experimenting over and over again because that's what everyone was doing. That's what
Right.
everyone in 2016 was doing. But now it's cool that we have such a discrepancy that like coaching is going to be the new frontier and people are going to be able to learn something a lot faster and a lot more correctly and not
Yeah.
have to struggle through years and years of bad reps and a bunch of bad reps that also just could be mechanically bad for you. Like I'm sure I have done my shoulder no favors over the year based on how I swing and stuff like that. So it's interesting having to go back.
Yeah, for sure.
Man. So coaching is kind of your new thing. What's like your typical client? Like you said they're a little bit lower on the spectrum, something around intermediate, but like age wise and like I guess
Yeah.
like I guess like what are their goals overall too?
Right. I mean, like I've really only been doing this for a couple weeks, but usually they're kind of they've been playing a lot. They're kind of newer. They've played in a handful of our Utah tournaments,
Hmm.
and they're just kind of feeling like they were good enough to like, because here we have like, we usually have like a beginner, intermediate, advanced, and elite, which is like premier-ish, right?
Right.
And and so usually they're like good enough that they're done playing beginner, they're playing intermediate or advanced, but they just can't quite get far enough. They can't, their little drop shots and going on two and roll up hits just aren't working anymore.
Right.
Uh, they're good enough to serve, receive, and get hits on the net, but they're just kind of stymied, kind of plateaued, and so with all of the guys I've been working with, day one, I'm just saying, okay, let me see you hit. Okay, let me see your mechanics. Okay, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Now let's fix your hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And we just work on pulls for like an hour, and I show them, okay, once we once we can do this low hit where it doesn't roll up, it's hitting our fingers, it's not hitting our palm, then all of a sudden we can do this from different angles, and we work on our footwork, and so we can pull at different angles. And then once we get that down, then we can learn to push, because it's very similar mechanics. We're just kind of opening up our elbow or our arm or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so, and I tell them from the beginning, I'm like, hey, you paid for this session, I can work with you on whatever you want,
Yeah.
but if you want to just trust me and give me the reins, I'll show you kind of what's important first.
Yeah.
Because usually when I ask, less experienced players, what do you think you need to work on most? They say serves and defense. And I say, those are the last two things you need to work on.
Yep. No, I think that's so true, because I think that's what everyone thinks the answer is, and especially I think that defense answer is a little bit more common when you get into those like intermediate and advanced players, because they're sitting there going like, I'm not getting any touches on anything. But I
Right.
think more than anything, like, you the way that you fly up through intermediate and advanced is just playing side out ball, because
Right.
people are making a ton of errors. So if you can just not make errors, you succeed so much more. And if you're able to create angles on your hitting to hit around people that don't know how to defend a pull or don't know how to defend a really good push,
Yeah.
then you don't even have to worry so much about defense, and you can just focus on punishing mistakes
Right.
instead of trying to play defense on really really good hits. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes that's just too difficult.
Right. And the way the way I like to show players, because sometimes they just don't believe me. They're like, no, I need this serve, and like I don't know where to go on defense, and they're like, my hitting's not a problem or whatever. And so I'll say, okay, and me and Stokes will play them, but we will just gentleman serve,
Hmm.
and we'll beat them 21-7.
Right.
and and I'll be like, see guys, we didn't ace you once.
Right.
And yeah, you didn't get any defensive ups really, but most pro teams don't get defensive ups against us unless it's a bad set,
Hmm.
you know? And so, but I was like, the reason you lost is because you beefed 5 sets, you missed 3 hits, and the rest of the hits you hit into us,
Right.
So I was like, you can throw the serving and defense out the window for now. Like,
Yeah.
the thing is, you're always going to be working on your serves because you serve every single game.
Yep.
So, like, you don't have to say, oh, I'll just forget about serving. You work on it while you're playing, but that doesn't need to be your focus.
No, no, I think people put way too much stock in it. And again, like, it's the cool thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
everyone wants to go to LA Fitness in an ideal world and just do really sick dunks over and over and over again. But
Yeah.
like, it's it's not actually what you would want to do if you were trying to get better at basketball. Like, you've been a basketball coach. You don't tell people to do like all the sickest things first and work on some like crazy, crossover fade back jumper. You're like, no, we're going to learn to like properly drive the lane. We're going to learn to
Yeah.
technically do a layup, or you're going to learn some, good
No.
footwork, and that's going to serve you a lot better for now. Like, you add all the flair later.
Right.
That's I mean, it's so cool that, like, again, you've been able to, do some of this. I guess outside of that, what have you been doing in a COVID world here? What was your job impacted by this at all, or no?
It was in the initial stages when everything, those that first month or two where, most restaurants were shut down.
Right. Yeah,
Everything
the
was just,
30 days to stop the spread type of thing.
yeah, everything was just kind of out of commission. And so um, for work, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm writing my books and doing my podcast and doing a lot of creative endeavors, and now I'm coaching, and then I wait tables. And so, yeah, obviously for that first little bit, I couldn't wait tables.
Right.
But obviously, like, I got unemployment and
Hmm.
everything, but also I was just like selling sets and
Yep.
and I decided to my most recent book. I decided it had been done, but it wasn't published yet, and I decided to just hurry and publish it because I was like, people are just sitting at home doing nothing. This will probably be a good time to put it out.
Yeah.
I could use the money, and it ended up being a really good decision. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely want to comment on that too. Like I'm halfway through the other book that you sent me, or that I bought off of you. The one about the Holocaust. What's that one called
oh,
again?
okay, right. Return not desired.
Return Not Desired. Definitely go look it up on Amazon. Do you have like an Amazon storefront or something that people can go to?
No, you can just find it on Amazon, but I always like am down to just send people copies if they want to Venmo me, or if they want a
Hmm.
signed copy or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you also get a lot more of the money if that happens too. So yeah,
yeah,
no, definitely reach out to Taylor and do that. I read your first book, right? Your one about all your relationships and stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. I read that one about a year ago, and
right.
I just picked up your one on the Holocaust about 10 days ago. I'm halfway
Okay,
through, and I'm splitting it up by with also reading Nietzsche. So,
okay, okay.
um, so just dark all around, but
Yeah, yeah. It's darkness.
yeah, but no, I'm loving it. So it's cool. What's the new one about? I saw you put it out, but I was like, all right, I
Um,
got to finish this book so that I can get the
yeah, yeah,
third one.
yeah. So the new one is a novel, which is the first time I've ever done any fiction.
Oh, nice.
So I was really excited about it. It's just it's realist fiction. So I tell people it's like the book form of an indie film. Like, it's just kind of a story about a guy's life and growing up and falling in love and dealing with depressive issues and just kind of life. But it's more character driven than plot driven. So you're not like waiting for something crazy to happen. There's no
Hmm.
warlocks and vampires. There's it's fiction, but it's very realist fiction.
Nice. I mean, those are always my favorite things. Like character driven stuff is what I've always been drawn to, especially like in the TV realm. I think TV is probably like one of my favorite mediums, but like not like the crap TV, like
Right, right.
your critically acclaimed stuff.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. I'm excited to dive into that. I'll throw a link. I'll throw a link down to that book
Oh,
in
sweet.
the show notes or wherever you're watching this. So
Yeah.
go support your local artists, people. This is cool stuff. Um, so so that was your main like creative endeavor during quarantine here, was getting that out.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. It was like I said, the like manuscript was finished, but I had to kind of go crazy like editing it and getting the cover finished and just getting all the kind of minutia out of the way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Here's a question. How, like, I have a cousin who's an author, and I've followed her journey a little bit. She's done a lot of stuff where she's self-published. She got one book picked up by a, small to medium-sized publisher.
Right.
Um, and, her journey's been, long and difficult, but also, just fun to watch. And, she gets a lot out of it. She's definitely loves what she does. What are like how do you go about like navigating that world? It's so saturated, it's so spread out, it's hard to break into from what I know.
Right.
Like what avenues have you like kind of gone down there in order to
Yeah.
to
Um,
figure this
for,
out?
for me, my philosophy has changed a lot over the past couple years because I think part of you when you start off as a writer, you have kind of these goals to quote unquote make it, right?
Right.
To get your books out there and to get a big name and everything. And the publishing world is just pretty cutthroat because you're basically, if you make it with one of they call them the top five publishers, Penguin, Random House, these ones you've maybe even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you publish with them, you got a golden ticket because your books are going to Barnes and Noble. They'll send you on a book tour. There's money behind it to market it.
Right.
Whereas if you get a book deal with a small press, like maybe your relative or whatever, they're really going to do close to nothing for you.
Mm-hmm.
They might organize a small little book signing, and they might like give you 1,000 copies to sell yourself. They don't have the capital to help you out.
Right, but they do have the capital to initially print it, which is, again, just something that a lot of people don't have, but it's definitely not like Random House or Penguin like you were
Right.
saying.
But yeah, ultimately I discovered that, at least for this stage in my career, because I'm self-publishing through Amazon and they print it for free.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, my cost is zero, and I have much more control over the royalties than I would with a small press.
That's true.
And I have complete like creative control. And so, for instance, like my first book, I decided to do a second edition, change the cover, add an afterword, and I just did it all myself, did it in a few days and reprinted it.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there's a lot of pros. Obviously, like right now, I can't get my books into like a major bookstore. I can't like, I don't have like the cachet of a published author
Mm-hmm.
per se. But to me, my focus has shifted to, okay, my focus used to be, okay, get published with a big publishing company.
Right.
And I still would love to do that, but it's shifted more to, how do I build a big readership and fan base in any way possible? So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I started my podcast. That's why I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to do more with. That's why I have a weekly newsletter that I started a while ago. I haven't done a great job with. Just all these other avenues, um, and revenue streams that will help me build more readers, because if I have more readers, I'll have more success. Like
Right.
I think sometimes people think like, oh, you just like, the goal is to like be famous, where it's
Yeah.
like the goal should be to like have as many people love your content as possible. And then the
Right.
byproduct, if the byproduct is fame, great, right? Because fame allows you the opportunity to do certain things maybe, but the goal in and of itself shouldn't be fame.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to kind of relate this back to RoundNet. Like, I feel like this is when everyone says, like, if only we just had a million eyes on the game, that would really just change everything. And then we'd be successful. And then we'd have all this money. And the truth of the matter is, we've had a million eyes on our game before. Like, there are so many things that have gone viral in our sport. And some of that, like, has just drawn people in or just raised awareness. But like, there was a TikTok of like the rally with Preston, Jarrett, Dylan, and I from Lancaster, that got 22 million views in like 7 days. But like,
Yeah.
I didn't see any money out of that. I didn't see any
Yeah.
followers out of that. I didn't see anything else. Like, eyes are just one thing. Like, exposure is just one thing, but driving that into actual success is entirely another thing. And so you kind of have to build these things from the ground up. And I think that's what people lose sight of, and what it sounds like you're actually doing. Because then when you get a book that does hit, you've got an entire readership ready to go out and make that book a success from day one, as opposed to being like, if only this was in every Barnes and Noble. Like,
Yeah.
well, maybe that works out and maybe it doesn't. Like, I know I'm watching a TV show right now, Jane the Virgin. I don't know if you've watched it, but she's a writer in that show, and she gets a book deal with a pretty good publisher, but it underperforms, and then they're less interested in their second book because their first one didn't live up to expectations. And so sometimes, if you get published too early, in quotes, that can actually kind of work against you.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like you said, like I've also fallen in love with doing podcasts, and so I'm like, if I can now I have I just have so many more goals than I used to. So it's like, to me, I don't care what blows up, because if something blows up, then everything will blow up, you know?
Right.
So it's like, if I get my podcast huge and get a bunch of downloads and more views and more listeners, then all of a sudden, yeah, a new book comes out and all my listeners are interested,
Right.
And so it's just kind of putting out content and making people interested in what you're putting out.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I are kind of, or I'm kind of dipping into exactly what you're talking about there, which is just like
Right.
this idea of like, putting all your eggs in one basket, waiting for that to blow up is just not as effective, I think, as taking a bunch of shots and letting one of those blow up. Like your win percentage on this doesn't matter. You need something to blow up because it'll feed everything else. And so that's when I started realizing, like, all right, I'm not really utilizing my Twitch exactly how I need to. My Instagram has been by far the most successful.
Mhm.
But what is that even getting me at this point? What am I pushing people towards other than just following the journey? And so
Right.
it's this idea of like, I want to be engaging with people in a bunch of other mediums. And I thought about, like how I digest media. Like there are people that I follow. Some people I love what they're doing. I only listen to their podcast.
Mhm.
Some of my favorite Twitch streamers I only watch on YouTube. I only watch their compilations because I just don't have the time to sit there live and do that. There are other people that I only watch them live on Twitch, and you realize that like one just feeds the other, and you got to meet people where they are. And so spreading yourself out
Yeah,
helps in that.
I'm the same way. There's a couple random people that I swear I only listen to on IGTV.
Oh, really? You're an IGTV user? I have
I
not been
mean,
able to get into the medium.
I'm not huge on it, but they're people that I follow on Instagram, and they often post things on IGTV. So it's
Hmm.
just a regular post, but then if you click on it,
Right.
it shows you the whole video. And so, like like I always listen to Dave Portnoy, the El Presidente from Barstool.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
He like reviews pizza, and
yeah.
he's
Hmm.
just funny. And so I just always watch his stuff on IGTV, and I'm sure it's on YouTube. And I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I'd never watch his stuff on YouTube.
Right. Yeah, it's the whole idea of also doing stuff that you can repurpose like that too. Like that's why I live stream this recording on Twitch and then upload the video of it to YouTube and do a specific edit on that, and then take the audio of that and throw it up on podcast apps, and then also make sure you hit a bunch of them. Like so, actually need to add um, Google Play. Although I think most people don't listen on Google Play. I think they don't. I think they have a pretty small share of the market. But I mean, you got to be on iTunes and Spotify at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's and so it's it's not more like it's a little bit more work, but it's less work than creating seven different things. Instead, I just get to post this in seven different places,
Right. Exactly.
and so that's been one thing to just kind of think about and try to figure out and drive content, and also content that you kind of want to see, and especially like with yours. I feel like I'm pretty squarely in the round net realm, if
Right.
you will. You kind of go across a bunch. What boxes would you even like put yourself in if you had to? I think it'd be
Oh,
tough.
it is tough. I because to me it's like, I look, like you said, I look at other media that I consume, and ultimately the people I follow that are kind of my favorites, I'm pretty invested in their whole life and journey.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what I'm trying to kind of put out there as well. And I'm just exploring my interests and what I'm passionate about. So if you follow me and, kind of consume all my stuff, that I love, I love spike ball. I don't talk about it a ton. I kind of keep that on like just my spikers social media.
Right.
Um, just because that's not necessarily my shtick. Like, um, and I love reading. I love my writing's important to me. And then I also make kind of like funny, humorous videos on YouTube and IGTV. And I was a history major, so I'm passionate about a lot of historical stuff. And I'm very passionate and interested in just kind of psychology and relationships. And so, like on my podcast, a lot of it's just talking about life, just kind of things people have been through, their ups and downs, their relationships. Just because I feel like people, when people hear a story that they can relate to in a language that maybe they didn't have, they weren't able to verbalize it or articulate it. I think people really resonate with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know I do.
So I love to have, people on my show that have kind of a unique voice. And, I'm not big enough yet to have like important, quote unquote, famous guests. So I have on, just like you with Roundnet stuff, I have on my friends. I have people I know that I know have interesting stories and interesting voices.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it sounds like you're in, a bunch of different areas, which is cool. But yeah, I think some people lose that a lot, and like that's something that I'm trying to adopt a little bit more too. Is that like people get invested in the story of someone,
Yeah.
and if you tell a watered down version of it, people aren't interested. You kind of have to get real, and you kind of have to let people into the little intricacies that like you don't even think that they're going to care about, but that kind of color who you are. It just adds a little bit of context, and so sometimes it's okay to go a little bit off of your topic or go a little bit out of your box, and like yeah, I don't need to like only talk about spike ball on this podcast. Like I also want people to kind of understand who I am, and I want to get to know people in the spike ball community outside of what six serves they have or what tips they have for a new player.
Well, and
I
I
think it's
feel
important
like,
to humanize people.
yeah, and I feel like eventually, for someone like you, hopefully people, as your followers grow and your fan base grows, hopefully people that don't really have a huge interest in roundnet, but maybe love like the fitness world or melee or whatever else you're talking about,
Hmm.
because you talk about it so much and you're passionate about it, they also tune in because of that.
Yeah,
Like I listen to Gary Vee a lot, and
love
he
him
talks, and he's kind of all over the place,
very much so.
but I mostly listen to his kind of like motivational stuff. When he starts getting really intricate about business and entrepreneurial stuff, I don't super care. And when he's talking about eBay and yard sales and stuff, I don't care.
Right.
But I tune in for the stuff I like, and I think that's how most content creators should be. They should put out stuff that they're interested and passionate about, and all your listeners aren't going to listen to all your stuff, but that's fine.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what I had to get over too, is that like, I looked at the views on the first, video podcast here, and it was like there were 10 views on it. And I was like, motherfucker, I put
Yeah.
so much time into learning how to edit this thing and I get 10 views. But at
Yeah.
the same time, like podcast numbers are way better than that.
Yeah.
And so clearly it's going there, but maybe YouTube's a better discoverability platform than the podcast is initially. Like everyone that went and downloaded this initially, like they know me. They're already following me on social media. I posted about it in SRA, so they followed it from there. But if you aren't in those groups or you aren't immediately following me, like maybe YouTube is just a discoverability platform for them. I mean, I know that's how I found a lot of my favorite Twitch streamers. It's just easier to find them on YouTube in the related video section or whatever. So maybe that pays off later. Maybe that's just bringing in new people, and maybe all 10 of those viewers were somebody new instead of
Yeah.
somebody who was already, listening to what I have. So I'm trying to, you know, detach myself from those numbers, which I'm sure you kind of have to do at some point too. As as an author, I know you if you only let the numbers of what you're doing decide what you're going to do as an artist, it's probably very unfulfilling, you know?
Yeah, and I try to look at it as like, if you kind of look at it as a business model, you're like, okay, if I consider one like download or one listener or one reader as a customer and they enjoy the content, they're probably going to continue to consume my content in the future, and they become hopefully kind of a lifetime customer. And so if you're kind of like, oh, well, I only got 10 downloads or 10 views, it's like, well, hopefully that's 10 people that for the rest of your life are going to read your books and listen to your videos and listen to your podcasts. And that's going to grow exponentially. It might take a while, but if,
Right.
if, if you look at the numbers and they're low numbers and that makes you sad, you're kind of not looking at the whole picture.
Yeah. Well, and especially like when you start off, like things are just they're just slower and they blow up more over time. Like just like every other RoundNet account or every other personal account, like when I decided that I was gonna, go all in on Instagram in 2017 and try to start making this like my main platform in my business, like I started with 300 followers, just like
Right.
everybody else. And it took a little bit of work, and it took showing up on that platform consistently.
Right.
Um, and if you let the fact that like, you post this awesome picture and you're like, this is the one that's going to go viral, and it gets, 47 likes, and you gain 2 followers from it, and you go, see, this isn't working. Like you kind
Yeah.
of have to play the long game on these things. And so, um, yeah, I think that all of that is tough. And then on the other end of it too, like the numbers don't also beget success either. Like just because I have over 10,000 followers and I have swipe up, like doesn't mean that I make a ton of money off my Instagram. Like I don't.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to push it that way, but I also want that to be my main platform that I just like interact with people on. Like
Yeah.
I always like I want to be reachable on that platform. I
Yeah.
want for people to be able to DM me and I actually respond. And so,
Yeah.
um, you just have to put all that stuff aside, and try to grow it, but at the same time be growing something that's actually worth something in the end. Like getting followers to have followers doesn't it's not a business model.
Right. Right.
That's interesting. So what else is in your pipeline artistically right now?
I mean, I'm working on a new book, but I'm like 3 pages in, so I don't
Hmm.
really have much to say about it. But I'm just I'm trying to collaborate more. For selfish and altruistic reasons. Like for me, I get a lot out of working with other people. You learn kind of their process and you
Hmm.
learn kind of what makes them tick creatively. And but then as like you end up kind of sharing audiences, and it helps you both. It's symbiotic.
Right.
And so I'm trying to do more of that, with obviously with podcasts, but also with my YouTube channel, which I've been consistent with at times, and then at other times I don't post for 6 months. And so I'm trying to be more consistent with that, and just I'm trying to put out kind of daily content, whether it's kind of micro content
Hmm.
or it's a big, thing. Um, and so, yeah, I don't have any besides, kind of the next book I'm working on, which I'll always kind of have a new writing project I'm working on.
Right.
I don't have anything huge in the pipeline. I'm doing this kind of creative thing with a videographer soon, where I'm talking about my what writing means to me and the purpose of it, and she wants to kind of do this, just kind of a cool, like, have me kind of reading it while she's like has some cool footage in the background. I don't really know her vision, but
Hmm.
it sounds fun and unique, and so yeah.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say like I think that all of that stuff is cool, and that's something that like I've kind of want to venture in right now too. Like I think collaboration is such a key word, and that's what's so annoying is I feel like I took the plunge on wanting to collaborate a lot more this year at a time where it's more difficult than ever to gather with people,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like especially in our community because we're all spread out around the country. Um, but that's something I want to do. Like I want to work with someone that does video better than I can do. I want to work with
yeah.
someone that does photography better than I can do. And these are all areas that like I'm interested in just like art wise and
Right,
using that to convey what I'm doing with my life. I love that idea, but the idea of doing it all yourself is so, it's a lot to put on your shoulder where you're like, all right, now I need to learn how to, edit footage and I need to learn how to, make it look cool and not just do like
right,
cuts. And I got to learn how to, use a DSLR camera and I got to learn how to, do a bunch of lenses. And it's like, oh, if I just like work with people,
right,
then I get to create kind of what I want, but also like with their expertise of like this is how it's better, and then they get a subject out of it, and they get something to do too. Like you said, all that collaboration stuff. Like you can say that there's an element to it that's a little bit self-serving or selfish, but that's the I mean, a good collaboration goes both ways where,
right.
people feel like they got something good out of it. And
Yeah,
I just want to do more of that stuff. Like, and I think it's so cool. And I think the world of content creation is incredible. Um, but so much of it requires you to sit behind a computer and click and clack and set all that stuff up. And I think that stuff interests me less.
right.
Um, not it doesn't like not interest me, but like God, I remember when I started the stream initially and I was like, holy cow, like setting this up is so tedious. But like thank God I spread a lot of that work out over, you know, all of this time to where, I made a little improvement here, a little improvement there, and now it, looks pretty good.
Yeah,
But if you could just work with someone that knew what they were doing up front, like you just get a better product. It's great.
right. Yeah, for sure.
Oh man. Um, so what are you doing non round net, non art related at this point?
I always play a lot of basketball. Basketball was kind of my first thing. Um, Although I'm not playing a ton right now because I had some leagues that were canceled, and so I'll play pickup every now and then. But besides that, I'm sure you've noticed on my Instagram, I do have a weird little hobby that I really enjoy. I like to go to these old abandoned ghost towns,
Yeah.
um, and that's like it's a free activity. It's definitely social distancing.
Yeah.
Uh, so, um, and there's oddly a lot of them out here in Utah. And so if you're down to kind of drive a couple hours and get lost and get weird, yeah, it's an easy, well, maybe not easy, but it's a fun, weird little activity. And it kind of combines my interests of like photography and history and
Hmm.
geography. It kind of because people always ask me like, why do you like doing that so much?
I
But
think
then,
it's so cool.
but
Like it,
it's a random thing I got into, but it's just so much fun.
yeah, I mean, I feel like if I had a like photographer friend, I would do that all the time. Like,
Right.
because you get like such cool photos out of all of that,
Yeah.
and it just kind of documents your experience a little bit. You have someone to do it with too.
Yeah.
I think that's like I think that's super fun. That yeah, it's cool that you're able to still do a bunch of that stuff even with everything going on.
Right.
Uh, any anything else kind of on your mind recently with anything just non round net related or
Um, trying to think. I'm kind of an obsessive personality, so I get super heavy into books and movies and shows and and YouTube channels, and I just I get obsessed with things pretty easily. So there's a lot of stuff I'm consuming right now. I'm trying to think um, if there's anything I should share with the world or keep secret to myself.
right? Well,
Uh,
is this just like a Are you one of those people that's like like go down a rabbit hole for 4 hours and all of a sudden know way too much about something you shouldn't know about, or something that
Oh,
like you've never
I'm
even
big
done yourself?
I'm big time a rabbit hole guy, especially you can find me on Wikipedia. If Wikipedia was like a social media platform where you could like see what other people are searching and comment and stuff, I'd that's where you could find me.
Oh,
Um,
you know what? You know what's a fun thing that I found? Have you ever heard of Wikipedia speedruns? So you can do a thing. There's like a website. I forget what it is, but you can go and it'll tell you a page to start on and a page to end on, and then it's your goal to get to that page by only clicking links within the
oh,
Wikipedia page. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, that's like one thing that I like passively follow. Like a rabbit hole that I would go down a lot is like speed runs in general,
Oh,
and I
that's
found
fun.
these like Wikipedia speed runs, and it's so funny because you start with Adolf Hitler, and you have to figure out how to get to like some scientist from who's a professor at Harvard currently, and you're
Right.
like, how do I get there? So that's kind of a fun thing. You should try that out because you'd probably be good at it because you got a lot of general knowledge of just like everything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would, you know how I would get from Hitler to a professor at Harvard?
How's that?
I'd go from the Hitler page somehow. I'd find a link to World War II. I'd go to World War II. You'd quickly find a link to World War One. Then I would find I would go to um, I'd find something about things that were happening in America, and so I'd click on the United States, and then I'd click on states, go to Massachusetts, go to Boston, go to Harvard, and then you're there.
See, he's already got the strategy, and he didn't even. He's never even done one. He's already mentally routed a path. Oh man, that's incredible. God. Um. So what's the latest with you and Stokes here? Um. How have things been going? You guys obviously finished the year off real strong.
Yeah.
Ended what, PR 4?
Um, yeah, let's see. I think there was like end of the season rankings and we were fifth, and then we were like preseason fourth, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Um, and then it's been kind of up and down because it's tough because all these Utah tournaments are kind of a gift and a curse because in an ideal world, we would just play all of them together, get really good
Hmm.
chemistry and training and synchronized. Um, but we would just beat everyone,
Right.
and it just becomes less fun for the community. And but it's tough because we don't want to mash up every single time either. We want to get in reps together,
Yeah, you need them.
and so we have all these. It's kind of this running joke that like each week it's like, Church, who you playing with? Are you playing with Stokes? Or are you playing who?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know yet. We'll see. Because we also, to me, it's fun if we're gonna mash up, if we both have competitive partners. You know,
Right.
it's just kind of it kind of sucks if one is pretty competitive and the other is like you
Yeah.
just can't really hold their weight.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And then I felt like we really underperformed in these like Utah tournaments with the Spike House where we had other big teams come out, and so that was kind of disappointing. But it's just like I put way too much weight on these tournaments because in my head I was like, okay, these are our tour stops because we don't have tour stops this year,
Hmm.
and this is what everyone's going to talk about for rankings and everything. And ultimately it just whatever people say about our team just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to have that mindset because I'm so competitive and I want to be the best and I want to beat everyone I play. But ultimately what the community thinks about our team, like I hope they like us as people. I care about that. But as far as where the community ranks us, it just really doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, we just have to go beat people. and and
Yeah.
that's all that really matters. And so it's frustrating because our one of our huge main goals this year was to make worlds.
Right.
Um,
Well, no
and we
one
were
did, so
right,
you're in good
right,
company
yeah,
there.
yeah. And also, we were planning on going to like 10 plus tour stops,
Yeah.
and to me, you know, I wanted to have a really, really full season where it was like, okay, they maybe had a couple, two or three tour stops where they got out in the quarters and lost to somebody below them, but they also won this tour stop and won that tour stop and got third here and got second here and got fourth here. Um, because, like last year, I think we went to six together,
Mm-hmm.
and, we had three really good performances, and then we had the rest we got out in the quarters.
Right.
And so it's like, I don't know, when you put a full season together, people can just really see how good you really are. Because, if you're only going to three or four or five tour stops, a lot of it depends on the bracket gods.
Yeah. No, that's
you know?
no, that's entirely true. I think there's like two ends of it, which I think are really funny in my experience. There's the teams that don't play enough
Mm-hmm.
and then they get benefit of the doubt, and then there's the teams that play too much.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I don't know, it's kind
Like,
of a double-edged sword. Like it really depends because like so like Strange Embrace was like a classic example from like 2017, let's say, or 2016 even. Um
okay.
where like they'd have a bad tournament and lose in the round of 8 or the round of 16 and everyone would be like, "Oh, that's just a fluke. It's fine." But then like Dylan and I would like lose in quarters to someone and they'd be like, "Oh, they're probably done. Like this is it for them."
Yeah.
And so sometimes because we would play like I think one year Dylan and I played 10 tour stops together, and we probably underperformed at two of them and like lost in
Yeah.
quarters. I mean, there was that we obviously had our bad loss at nationals that one year, which
Yeah.
was fair, but I mean, I just remember there were times where like we'd be power ranked number two, we'd have one bad loss in quarters to like a good team, and then and then teams would be like, I don't know, I think I'm gonna put him at like five, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wow, we just like moved down like three spots because of like one loss, and then there were other teams too that would just they'd be at the top, they'd have one bad tournament, and they'd be like, oh well, we can't move them, they're so good.
Yeah.
Um, it is interesting, but yeah, like I spent so many years being entirely frustrated about that.
Right.
And I think you just heard a lot of that in my voice, probably. But, at this point, it's just one of those things like it doesn't matter whether a team puts you or, whether people put you ranked here or ranked there. Like if you go home with, with podium picks and glassware, people can't take that away from you.
Right.
And that means like that means for sure that you did something well that day.
Right.
Um, and as someone that has just kind of steadily fallen down the rankings since 2016, yeah, I've definitely been frustrated about it. I used to be so upset about where people ranked me.
Right.
And I think if I'm being honest, I'm like, oh God, again, we're gonna like just keep rating me that low. But at the end of the day, like if you just keep having good seasons, like like they can't take that part away from you at all.
Right. And it's hard to compare, like, especially your like 2019 season. It was kind of all over the
Well,
place.
yeah, that's such a mess because I played with a bunch of different people. I lost my partner halfway through the year. Had like a questionable finish with a new partner, but then had two really good finishes with him. Like I was all over the place. Like where the hell do you rank me? I don't know.
Right. And like, to be fair, where the hell do you rank Skylar? Skylar's hard to rank,
Hmm.
because when you're ranking people, do you consider their past? I mean, it's hard not to, but it really has nothing to do with their present,
Right.
and he's a very versatile, dynamic player, but obviously has certain limitations.
Right.
Uh, so he's hard to rank, but it's like you two together. it's almost like you can beat anybody, but you can lose to anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean we were killing people with consistency, and if we decided that we were less consistent that day and just not playing up to par, like we were gonna lose. But
Yeah.
if we were playing our game, we could compete with anyone, and that's such it's just such a different thing, and that's why like I especially had to just give up on the value of individual rankings because like I just think they're stupid. Like we play a team sport, and especially when you play a team sport that's only two people and you
Mhm.
can't really hide anywhere, like your results are a direct representation of how good you are to some extent too.
Yeah.
Like when you're gonna pick an MVP on a basketball team or a soccer team or something like that, like it's easier to stand out when there's more people, and it's real easy to stand out if you're in a sport of one. If you're a boxer, it's real easy. Your performances only affect you, but um, yeah, I mean the individual performances are just like I think like the rankings for that anyway are so skewed towards like what can this person specifically bring to the table to just destroy somebody. And so
Yeah.
it really values the idea of like what is your toolkit and
Mm.
not like what are your results or
Yeah.
what is your consistency. Because I just remember looking at player rankings, especially for years, where I was just so a year that like in 2016, this was the one that I was so mad about. 2016 was obviously the best year that I had um, with Dylan. We won 8 pitchers, 2 mugs, and like three, or no, and like two glasses. So we had a bunch of those finishes, and like Dylan got ranked like 6, and I
Mm.
got ranked like 13.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, that's just literally insane though, because like we literally won half of the tour.
Right. Right.
So like if that's the case, like then we had a lot of upsets. But at the end of the day, people were going like, well, what does that one person bring? What does that one person bring? And what was unrelated to that was like the chemistry and the strategy
Yeah. Yeah.
and all of that stuff that you work on. And that's where Dylan and I shined the most, was just like, I mean, especially in consistency at that point.
Right.
Um, and that's just undervalued because who cares if you make 80% of your serves if you can't just outright ace somebody? They
Right.
seem to
Right.
make an exception for Chico, but they won everything. They won nationals, so Skylar and Sean got to stay up at 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like especially those individual ratings, like they just devalue some of the things that I think make you win the most, and
Right.
exactly the things that you're coaching people on right now, which is consistency. Like that's how you level up real quick.
Right. And the thing that is also frustrating with our sport is there's really no good analytics, you know.
No,
And I know people are making attempts, but it's I just think we're really far away from having like full stats on every game on every tournament all year long.
yeah, no,
It's
for
just
sure.
not realistic right now, and that's fine. I don't have beef with that,
Hmm.
but it's hard to because in basketball you can say, well, homeboy's shooting 28% from the 3 point line. He's not that great of a 3 point shooter,
Hmm.
whereas in round net I think it's easy to be deceived. You watch a couple highlight films, you see one finals, and you make a decision about a player. You know,
Yeah.
and it's
Well,
like it would be interesting if you had full stats and could say, well, he on long recovery sets, he only recovers about 40% of those, whereas maybe a Clark Marshall recovers like 88% of those.
hmm
Like it would be so cool to have really precise analytics because then you could just make better arguments.
Yeah, for sure. And the frustrating part is I feel like it pretty much the way it's set up now, with watching highlight films and that kind of stuff, like it really just goes back to like confirming your own confirmation bias no matter what. Like even if you watch a sick highlight video of someone that like you don't have a problem with when you play against them, like
Mm-hmm.
there are people I could just watch their like ridiculous serve ball highlight, and I'm just like, Well, right, but when I play them, that doesn't happen. So like they're not actually that good.
Yeah.
Uh, but then someone else is sitting there going like, "This kid's the new king, and we all have to watch what he's doing, and I'm gonna rate him top 20." And I'm just like, okay, that's it's crazy that we could all get such very different things out of there. But if we could actually look at that kind of stuff, I'd even just like if we had season long breakdowns of just um, breaks like breaks achieved versus breaks given, like
Hmm.
even just that plus or minus on people's
Right.
heads over an entire season, I think would show so much. Because
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, when it's rally scoring, that's what it comes down to. You have to get more breaks than the other team,
Yeah.
and that's why even the rock paper scissors matters because someone starts plus one,
Right.
and so. I think that stat matters, and some people are more concerned about how you get those breaks um, than how you don't. So even just point diff in general, like over a season for a team, would really show, um, who's really that good.
Yeah. Yeah, and you would also, if you did do that, you would also get some empty stats because, like, I know for me, if it's the round of 16 and we won game one and it's game two and we're up 19-12,
Yeah.
I'm not serving hard the rest of the game.
Right.
I'm taking it easy and coasting coasting through that win. Um,
Right. Well,
and
well, well. That's what's tough too. Is there's of course that element because I certainly do the same. Or just like yeah. Once you're up 5 breaks in a game, like you're playing conservatively. Like you're not playing to try and like wreck people. Like you put all your serves on and because you can eke out another break if they just make an error. Like so, those things are like some of the unspokens that um, you can't really even get into numbers when it comes down to that too. So even that, like stats are limited, but certainly like eye tests on people, like it just really skews towards like how flashy are you and like what
right,
ridiculous one thing can you do, but like how useful is that thing anyway? Like and when you're a good server, that's pretty useful. Um, but when people are talking about like, oh my God, he can do this ridiculous like spin drop shot. I'm like, what, like once a tournament? Like
right,
that doesn't get you a win almost ever. So I don't
yeah,
know what I don't know what good that is. I mean, I guess it's cool, but it's like that's a trick.
right, right. Yeah, sometimes people will ask me like, what film helped me the most or what players did I kind of idolize the most or learn from the most. And
Hmm.
honestly, I watched like I think I've seen almost every like video on Drew's channel of CS, and but
Hmm.
I wasn't watching to watch them ace people to death. I was watching Tyler Chiswick's finishes. That's
Right.
that's what I cared about. I was watching kind of how he manipulated the ball with his wrist and the flick of his elbow and his footwork. That's what I was focusing on. And to me that's flashy and that's beautiful and that's what I like, because to me like nowadays everybody has tough serves,
Yeah.
and they look amazing if the receiver misreads it and so it goes 5 feet past them.
Right.
But that sometimes you hit that same serve against Jarrett Rouse and he just goes,
Right.
or whoever, sometimes you just get a bad read and it looks like the best serve in the world.
Yeah. No, I say the same thing all the time. I'm just like watching these serve highlights and I'm like, well, I would have never let that happen. Like or like that'd be a one in a million. And I guess you could, put me on a reel about it, but like yeah, sometimes, especially with serves, you can look a lot better than you are.
Yeah.
What what things with Stokes are you like mostly kind of working on and looking forward to like doing in 2021?
As far as like skill wise,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like what would you want to debut going into 2021?
um, it's tough because, and I'm sure you agree, but at this level, like the main thing that needs to improve is like our serve receive and our like consistency on our like best serves,
Hmm.
because we're good at like I think we have a decent like put on percentage, and we're both good at if we feel like you know if we feel like the team we're playing is making some unforced errors, we'll kind of just you know take it down to 70% and just put it on
Right.
because we feel like we're good defenders. But um, yeah, I feel like every series we've lost has been because of serve receive and nothing else.
I mean, it usually comes down to that. I think if we did a major thing where we had a bunch of stats, we
Yeah,
would see the importance of serve receive. Like being able
right.
to neutralize somebody's serve is easily the most important skill. Like because if,
Yeah,
'cause if you can stay in system and then you're a strong side out team, it's real hard to get breaks because you make every team really earn them. You know?
right. And I feel like we've gotten a lot better at recovery sets and kind of a lot of the little intangibles of the game. Um, but like our series where we lost against Ryder and Preston in Utah, um, we just like I think maybe we got two aces and they got five,
Yeah.
and that was it. Like there were no other mistakes.
Yeah.
And
Did your matchup knowledge of the like reverse cut play into that at all or no? I because I haven't watched that
um,
series, but
yeah, that was the main thing. We just got wrecked by the reverse cut, and I've received a handful of reverse cuts from Grant uh, Grant Laughlin. Chandler has a decent reverse. Stokes is starting to have one. Um, but Riders is just on a whole nother atmosphere.
yeah, that's what I hear.
And it was the first time we'd played him at all.
Right. I mean, there's a new factor to that too. Like I've always said, I'm at my weakest when I'm playing someone good who I've never played against before. Like the first time I had to play against Grant, I was just like, oh no. I had no doubt I was a better player than him when I played him,
Yeah,
but I was just like, oh God, I have to figure out everything. Like I have to figure out your entire flow chart
right,
on serve receive, and that's your strength. So you're at your peak, and I'm at my weakest. It's
right.
like that's
And
tough.
I've seen Preston enough that I think Preston in that series had one, maybe two aces,
Hmm.
and Ryder in two games probably had six or seven aces.
Yeah.
You know, um, and I think the other thing is we were going into that series very like tense and not nervous, but just because it was just a crappy quarters draw
Right.
because I think we were the
That was a 6-3, right?
yeah we were the 3 seed and we're playing in what world is Preston and Ryder the 6 seed?
Yeah. I mean,
You
sometimes
know?
those things happen, and those have happened both ways. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, it
I
it
know
happens, but it's like if we're playing them in the finals, we're
different
gonna
story,
be
right?
we're gonna be much more relaxed and like have momentum instead of crap. If we lose this, we're out in
Hmm.
the quarters.
Right. It's the
Um,
it's the if we lose, this will be a disappointing finish that
right, and
is always the worst feeling.
it's a terrible mindset to have because ultimately you just got to go beat whoever you're playing, but it's
No,
hard to
it's so
it's
hard to
hard to
not
not
fall
have
into
that.
that, and that's why having good pool play is huge. I mean, did they drop in pools or something stupid or
Yeah, yeah,
okay?
they dropped. I think they dropped two games,
Jeez.
and we just dropped one game,
Yeah.
and so it was just. Um, but yeah, going back to your original question, what me and Stokes are working on. It's tough because I'm always working on my finishes and just trying to be more dynamic because obviously with a good set, I can put anything away, right?
Hmm.
But what I'm always trying to work on and fine tune is making the correct shot that is a difficult shot.
Right.
When you have a quick set that's a little in your body or a little off the net, and you're also trying to read the defense and just being as dynamic as possible. You look at again, I look at a Tyler Chiswick um, and I feel like you give him a set anywhere around the net, he's going to hit like the perfect shot.
Yeah, he does have some of the best decision making that I've
Yeah,
ever seen. He never has to like bail out of a situation is what I call it, or like hit through a situation. Like there's
right.
so many times where I'm just like, all right, I'm in a slightly disadvantageous part, but if I clock the crap out of it, or if I just launch this thing 40 feet, it'll be difficult for them to do anything with it.
Right.
Um,
That's a lot of what not a lot of, but I think like Preston will do that a lot because he knows he can crank the ball.
right.
And I think Chiswick, he can crank it too, but he's also his wingspan is a lot shorter.
It's not the same as me or Preston or you,
Right.
that's for sure.
Right. And so he, especially off the net, he can't just rip it like crazy because he probably just doesn't have that reach. Um, and so he's just become extremely cerebral with his hitting. And I feel like I have too. I'm just always trying to get it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better.
Yeah,
Uh,
there is always that next frontier, and like even a lot of the more consistent hitters right now are having to add some other stuff to their you know repertoire just because at some point, like I know no one believes it, but like defense is catching up, and if you're just going to do the same standard hits that would usually succeed, like the better teams at the top are going to pick up on that and pick up one or two in a match, and that's the difference a lot of the time.
right. Well, my mindset is, in pickup and granted, we have a lot of great players in Utah. We have a lot of premier guys, but I wouldn't say besides Stokes, I wouldn't say we have any like stellar defenders out here.
Right.
I consider myself a decent defender,
I would too.
but as far as like people we're playing against, people rarely are getting touches against us. But I feel like if we play, if we're playing pickup for 2 hours and we play 7 or 8 games, um, if someone gets 3 defensive touches on me in 8 games, to me that's too much.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
even if you look at it holistically and you're like, well, dude, we won every game by 6 points. What does it matter? I look at it as, okay, would Kenny have gotten that up against me?
Hmm.
Even though that defender, it kind of hit his hand and flew off or whatever, would Kenny have converted it? Would Chiswick have converted it? And that's how I have to look at it. It's like, okay, my game's in a really good spot. Me and Stokes are good enough. We've taken a game off of CS. We've taken a game off of Boisterous. We've beaten a lot of top teams, but we're not consistently beating top 5 teams. We
Right.
we can hang with them. We can maybe beat them, but that next level is just a tiny bit more consistency.
Yeah. Well, I think people also lose sight of that too. And this is something that I specifically rank teams with too, is like, what is the gap between, like, in their matchup chart? Like, if you were going to rank, like, all right, if all these teams are only playing this team, who's above them, who's below them? And part of that too is also like, how big is the gap between the teams below them? Because that leads to your consistency right there. Like just because if I'm gonna rank a team like you, like there aren't a ton of teams I'm gonna put above you, but there are a lot of teams that I can put below you and say like there's a pretty big gap right there where like they're not gonna win very consistently.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to those consistent finishes because then the more you pair up with a team like that, and especially once you're right around where you guys are, where like if you're preseason ranked 4, those are the teams like below you that you're going to often play in a quarterfinal,
Right.
and that's how you're going to get top fours over and over again. Is how consistently are you beating a team like that, and then on the off chance that you get a Preston and Ryder in quarters or a CS in quarters, those are unfortunate draws, but yeah, I think that people don't don't value that part of it enough of like an individual teams matchup. Like they might lose to the teams above them very consistently, but if they're beating everyone below them very consistently, like that's incredibly valuable and
Right.
allows you to focus on, you know, leveling up instead of just defending your spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, any hmm. I guess we've kind of gone long enough here, and I think we've hit all the major all the major stuff here. Um, any any words you want to leave with the community here? Anything you want to plug? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously all your social channels, I have to link those down below,
Let
but
me ask you something first.
oh,
Right on
okay.
that. What are your goals slash vision for 2021? Do you have kind of a partner semi lined up or somebody you have your eye on? Are you looking to mash up here and there? Are you focused on worlds? What are you thinking?
Um, it's an interesting question. I'm really trying to focus on the here and now, which involves a lot of, you know, the not playing stuff. I think
Yeah.
I want to I think I'm really focused on kind of like, you know, connecting with the community, growing platforms and putting out some more quality content, like do some more community driven stuff instead of focusing on me and my finishes and my team and all that stuff. In
Hmm.
terms of partners, like I don't have anything lined up. Um, there's just too many uncertainty
Sure.
things going on with that. Um, but you know, I had a couple of contingencies planned out in case regionals and nationals ran and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But going into 2021, like I think right now what I want to do is really focus on my game, focus on a lot of my own improvements, and then kind of see where that goes. Like I think when I chose to play with Fred at the beginning of this year, it was because I wanted to work on the things that I wanted to work on, and I wanted to find someone to hustle with as well, who wanted to rapidly improve, who wanted to reimagine the game, who wanted to, you know, focus on just doing something different in order to win.
Hmm.
And that's still interesting to me, but you know, like there's a whole new slew of candidates right now that are, you know, coming up in the sport and looking to do something like that. Who knows, you know, in 6 months whether certain other people retire and top players become more available. But I'm looking for someone that I can, you know, grow with, that I can work on, that I can like have fun playing with. I think
Yeah.
I've put that too far in the back of my goals for too many years now, where I've just really been focused on, you know, winning, and that's become a little bit more empty.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I don't have like a specific plan here, but you know, my main goal is to, you know, use this time to really work on my skill set, bring some new stuff to the table, find new ways to have fun, and specifically work on, you know, I mean, I'm reinventing my entire serve, so that's a lot of work, which, you know, I don't recommend players spend hours serving in their basement, but that's kind of what I need to work on a lot right now. But I'm also sitting there, you know, drilling drop shots and drilling left hands and things that I just don't normally do, just to
Yeah.
have that repertoire of, you know, when I get into a bad situation and that's actually a better shot, maybe I don't have to try and hit my way out of it. Maybe I can
Yep.
actually, you know, hit that smart hit. So a lot of it's that, and in general, just finding better ways to, you know, connect with the community while I do this and make this less of a team thing. Like I'd like to still be competitive while I play for sure. That like, I want that to be the case, but I think sometimes I lost the community aspect in that too, where like I let, you know, my performance on a certain weekend impact whether or not I met anybody new or kept up
Yeah.
with someone or you know, smiled at the after party.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want that to be the case anymore. So, you know, I'm trying to find ways to, you know, enjoy these things a little bit more, and I think that's through community connection. And
Yeah.
I'm also I'm also on a big kick right now about trying to see what I can do to just improve the sport overall. Like I think we've had a lot of good conversations recently about rule changes and stuff like that, and just identifying some of the issues, but coming up with actual solutions I think is such a different beast. And so in the background, I'm kind of working on some of that stuff and theory crafting, and just trying to find ways to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I I think that I'm still gonna play as much as I do next year, or as I normally do, as long as we actually have a tour season and it's safe and all that. Um, but I'll probably mash up a decent amount. I'll probably have one person that I'll get ranked with and try to make a run with and accumulate points with.
Right.
But I'll have to figure out, who that is. I guess I'm accepting applications if you wanna if anyone wants to throw their hat into the ring. But
Free agent.
yes, yeah, definitely a little bit more towards free agent, and I think that would have scared me a lot more. I'm definitely not like thrilled that that's a position I'm in.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to have something really solid and know that that's what I wanted to do and grow with and feel confident in. But I don't feel like that's 100% where I'm at. That said, I'm definitely gonna try and play a bunch with Skylar. He just like has had a lot of like I think we had a lot of fun at our
Yeah.
tournaments, and while we underperformed in Utah, like playing in New York was like felt really good. Playing at nationals felt really good.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I value his skill set more than the rest of the community. So
Yeah.
I think that's good in and of itself. So
Yeah.
I know I'll for sure play some with him because I know he's always down.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see. We'll see what the season holds. Like
Right.
there's a lot of time now between then and there. Like who's to say that even some of the top teams don't make make it make changes.
Yeah. Yeah. You
It's
never know.
Yeah, you just never know, and you never know what the field's going to look like, and you never know how much people are going to want to play and who's ready to dive in. Like I want someone who's going to dive in as hard as I am, and that's a tough ask. So,
Sure. Sure.
and I'm not saying like you have to play all that much, but like to want to work that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one more? Sorry, I got all excited about Roundnet.
No, of course.
What is the finish that you're most proud of? Whether it's a pitcher or just an upset, or what's in your whole career?
Oh God, there's so many good ones. I think nostalgia wise, I look at Santa Monica Grand Slam 2016 really, really heavily. This was my first Grand Slam title. So
Hmm.
that was huge. It was, an overperforming day for us. But everything just really clicked in pools or not in, or out after pool play. I think we won that tournament with the 9 seed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but we had to play a lot of good teams. We played two guys in the round of eight. And we had to beat them, and then our semifinals was against Beavers, which is the only time that I've ever played Hanson Beavers.
Mhm.
Um, and that was an incredible match. And then the finals, we kind of decimated Strange Embrace after they had beaten Chico in the semifinals. But I think that one felt really good. Um, it was just I think that was one of those moments of like, all right, I really am as talented as I think I am, or like
Yeah.
I'm performing at the level that like I know I can. I think after that gave me a lot of confidence for like 2 or 3 years. But I think recently, like honestly, like nationals this year was huge. Just playing very consistent ball. I also feel like I felt like in the zone in that Moctega match for the first time in probably a year. Like I don't think I had felt like that, like that flow feel in sports that you have where you just like
Right.
feel like everything's making sense and everything's on your side, and you're like calm but focused in intensely at the same time.
Right.
I feel like I really felt that there, so I have no regrets on that one. That was one of the best matches I think I've ever played, and
Yeah.
it was fun and competitive, and I would have liked that to go our way, obviously, but I think that one was important. Oh, no, I'll say for sure, um, beating 717 at 2018 Nationals, um, and like I had like a full on emotional reaction after we won that game,
Was that
because
was that in the quarters?
that was quarters, and that was the first time that I had ever made. I mean, one when we played Chose Bros in the round of 16.
Yeah.
And not to say anything bad about them, but like Vengeance should have won that game, and we did. But that was the
Yeah.
first time I had ever made it past the round of 16 at nationals. I had always been
Right.
upset
Right.
at nationals, so like that was big. I honestly was most nervous that entire day playing that round of 16 game because I was just like, I have to get past this. I have to get over this hurdle. And
Yeah.
then beating the 717, it was finally like, all right, finally. Like I've been a top 4 team for so fucking long, and I have not been able to make it up
Yeah.
into those semifinals and finals where like I knew I wanted to play. And
Right.
I like full on like fell in the sand and like I think I shed a tear or two. I didn't like full on cry, but like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was I'd say that was a big moment.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I don't know, those are some of mine, but God, I mean there's just so many to look back on, like playing with Zach Vance and making the finals at Raleigh in 20 was that 2018? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was 2018. Like that was just so cool. Like no one saw that shit coming.
Right.
And I had so much fun playing with him at that one. I don't know. There's just been a lot of those moments. And those are the things I live for. Like that's what I play for. I play for those like super fun competitive moments, and those little moments of achievement too, where you just feel good.
Right. Well, that's kind of what sports is all about, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about those little moments of where everything kind of comes together and it becomes emotional because of all the work you've put in and just the circumstances and kind of the beauty of what happened. That's kind of why we play.
Yeah, for sure. What's your go-to? I mean, obviously you've got a pitcher to your name. Is that the one?
Um, Probably because I mean, I have three pieces of humble glassware, and the the mug was like it was so like bittersweet because we beat Chiswick and Alvino, which was huge. First time I'd ever beat Chiswick,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then what appeared to be the harder match in the semis, we won, and then we lost in the finals. And granted, like they kind of they kind of slapped everyone that day,
I sure
but
did.
just being in Utah, the hometown, having come off such a high of beating Chiswick and Alvino and then losing to them was pretty upsetting. So,
Yeah.
but it was also it was my first mug. It was it was a great finish for us, but it was still very bittersweet. And then the pitcher was also bittersweet because Trippy had to forfeit
Right.
because Andrew hurt his neck, and but I was like, all right, I'm not going to let anybody take away this pitcher moment from me
Right. Nor should you. Not at all.
because I was like, and I'm not remotely talking trash on Trippy because I think they're amazing, and I wish we've literally never played them again. I
Really.
wish we've had more matchups against them, but we beat them pretty handily in pool play, and we beat them pretty handily in game one, even if I don't know to what extent Andrew was already injured, but
Right.
so I didn't feel like okay, well, Trippy definitely would have beat us if they were healthy.
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
those are just different things. For sure. But at the end of the day, like the team has to compete in order to win. Like the trophy's got to
Right.
go to
And
someone. So like even if he just accidentally tears his ACL doing nothing, like that's how it goes. Like
yeah, I mean that's how essentially how Skyler won his fifth regionals or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, they were in the bracket reset. They had beaten Hilltop once.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that but then Hilltop looked like they were doing some good work against them. So that's why it was
yeah,
like, all right, this
right.
is this is interesting, and then it didn't happen. But like you can't take it away from him. Like you put yourself
Yeah.
in that situation and you're there.
And I mean the truth is sometimes in sports you just get lucky,
Yep.
but it's like if you work hard enough and you play enough, you compete enough, some luck will go your way.
Right.
And so yeah, like I said, that picture was a little bittersweet because I was like, man, I know people are going to be like, well, Trippy would have beat them if they were healthy, but I was like, dude, who cares? I got a pitcher. It's something I've always wanted, and now I'm here, and also we didn't drop a single game all day. So
Ah, those are the best when you just like
yeah,
the guys are clearly in flow. You know, you're just like
yeah,
you're
so I
just
just
rocking teams.
yeah, I just felt like we were gonna win regardless. It was our day. It was 200 degrees outside in freaking Charleston.
Classic.
And also it was like, and this sounds like, people, it sounds like a silly reason for it to be my favorite tournament ever, but I also just loved Charleston. Like the day before, we had a blast. We It was just beautiful, and I don't know, we just had such a blast in Charleston that it just made the whole experience so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think those things matter, and I think that's one thing that I've tried to encourage people to do too. Is like there are some tournaments where like if you have to, you know, you fly in the night before and you fly out early the next morning, but
Yeah.
try to find those where you don't have to do that and like explore the world. Like that's been one of the things that I've really come to appreciate. Like in 2016, it was literally like how late can we get there before the tournament, and how quickly can we get back because we had jobs or whatever that or just I don't know. That wasn't the priority. It was like go in, win, and leave, and you you come to appreciate the community a lot more when you stick around, and you come to appreciate what you're doing and traveling for this when you actually take the time to enjoy where you're traveling to and not just get to know the airport and some random field that you're playing at.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's not experiencing the world. So
Right. And I've talked about this before, but I've tried to, over the years, I've tried to realize that my happiness and self-worth shouldn't be tied into my wins and losses,
God, yes. Yes.
even though that's difficult for me to do because I'm so competitive.
Yep.
But I'm just a happier person the more I realize that, and the more I take Roundnet. I look at Roundnet holistically and not just as, did I win or did I lose? Am I happy or am I pissed off? You know,
Mhm.
because there's so much more that goes into the sport and the community and the camaraderie and the your teammate and the friendship and just the sport itself,
Right.
to say, okay, I went to Santa Monica, got beat by Cahooters, which what the F? Now I'm pissed. This tournament sucked. Like it's just a bad attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had that bad attitude too, and
Yeah.
even as recent as 2018 Santa Monica, like I completely let our loss to a subpar team ruin my entire weekend. I was in my favorite place. I love Santa Monica. It's
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
one of my favorite places in the entire world, and I was a, for lack of a better word, like just a sack of shit. Like no one wanted to be around me, and that
Right.
was fair. And I didn't want to be around anybody either. And it's just
Right.
like, God, is that worth it? It's just not.
Yeah.
Especially when like next weekend you're just gonna be playing again, and
Yeah.
that things will be different. Like it'll be
Right.
okay. Oh man. Well, good
Yeah.
times reminiscing. I think we've gone for like almost an hour and a half. Good stuff.
No.
Any final words you want to leave the community with, Roundnet related or otherwise?
Let's see. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for all you're doing for the community.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, um, it's just awesome that you care so much about the sport that you are consistently giving stuff to people for free. Um, and it's awesome. So I appreciate that, and I think it encourages other people to do content and to also just become obsessed with the sport, which I think is important.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Definitely what I'm going for. So it's
Yeah,
always good to be recognized for that every once in a while. So thanks.
yeah. And as far as I don't know, I feel like these are good opportunities to kind of speak to the spike ball community as a whole. And I would just kind of iterate what I just said. If people can kind of look at the game as more than did I win or did I lose, and realize how much joy the game really brings them, and to take a step back and realize, okay, obviously the sport gives me so much joy, but is the joy I'm getting just because I beat somebody, because I won this tournament or beat this team, or is it because of everything that is involved in it? because it's really like, I just feel so blessed that I discovered this sport, that I ran into it, and that I have this like cavalcade of friends that I never would have had before. Um, and I'm so competitive that it's easy to lose track of that
Hmm.
when I'm playing and competing, because I just want to beat people so bad. And I almost hate losing more than I like winning, which is kind of silly. But yeah, if people, because I know most people in the community are very competitive. But if you can take a step back and realize what the game has given you and what it always gives you, I think you'd be a happier person.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important to just take a step back and realize all the good that's going on instead of just focusing on the improvements that you'd want to make, or any negative feeling you have towards it. I think our brains are designed to focus on the negative a lot, and actively taking some time to focus on the positives is huge. And then you don't lose the forest for the trees, and
Right.
you you realize that what we have here is something special, flaws and all. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
appreciate that. All right, Taylor. Well, great talking to you as always. And for everyone listening, we're going to continue this on his podcast. We're doing a little bit of a pod swap. So if you haven't gotten enough of us, which I'm sure you haven't, let go make sure to check out his stuff. We'll link that all up in the show notes. Want to tell people a little bit about your podcast here and what we're going to be
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. If people want to just check it out, my podcast is called Of Stone and Clay with Taylor Church. Like I said before, it's just a very humanistic podcast. I just talk with people and we talk about their lives and the things they're enjoying and passionate about and things they're struggling with. And so our episode with me and Chris will be a little less Roundnet related. I'll kind of introduce him to my listeners that don't really know anything about Roundnet, so people kind of know the role it plays in our lives. But besides that, we'll just kind of dig into the personal side a little bit more. So it'll be fun. So I'd love if anyone wants to listen of Stone and Clay. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's everywhere. If you want to find my books, they're on Amazon, or if you want to hit me up, like I said, I love sending copies to people. Just find me on Instagram at Taylor Church 44. Love to chat with anybody about anything.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah, make sure you go check out Of Stone and Clay. Subscribe to that so that you get the episode as soon as it drops. And, all right, we're going to go do that right now. Taylor, thanks for being on.
Okay, thank you, brother.
All right, peace out.
We'll see you.